Welcome back to another episode of the Daily Flip podcast. I'm your host, Alex, and today we're going to be flipping through some of the top stories, mainly one talking about Tulsi Gabbard and how the Republicans who want to help Donald Trump get his picks through may be a little bit less than satisfied with her answers and some of the questions that they pose to her. And of course, we went today with our Daily Delight, a story meant to leave you feeling positive, ready to take on the day. But that's enough rambling for me. Let's jump into our daily debate. So, will Tulsi Gabbard, in your opinion, be a good national security advisor, basically the head of all of the different intel agencies and intel conglomeration? I have plenty of opinions. Most of them are based on the fact that I like Tulsi Gabbard from before this pick. Is she the best person for this pick? Not necessarily. She was not in depth in any of the agencies, FBI, CIA, NSA, anything of that sort. So to pretend as though I could say that she has all of the qualifications in order to run this post, I would say no. But I want to know your opinions. Does that weigh on you that she doesn't have the experience in some of these locations? Is her time in Congress enough to possibly outweigh any of these, especially when she was on different subcommittees there that gave her a little bit of a glean or an insight into how these different operations run? Tell me what you think down in the comment section. Throw them down there. I'll go read them, maybe even respond to them. So with that, let's jump into our first article, and only article besides our Daily Delight that comes from alternet.com. And the headline reads, "Less than thrilled. Trump team reportedly disappointed after key pick underperforms." And remember, Alternate is a more left-leaning outlet, so they're going to try to cast doubt. Maybe there are plenty of senators who haven't said anything, and that's just going unreported. But the point being that there is some disconcern, or at least a little bit of rumblings from inside the Senate that Tulsi Gabbard may not be the best pick. So I want to go to the second paragraph where they give a little bit more insight here. Quote, Axios reporter Mark Caputo appeared Wednesday morning on CNN where he discussed a political report that quoted foreign policy experts predicting that Rubio would be undercut by MAGA loyalists as the nation's top diplomat. Quote, in my eyes almost rolled into the back of my head, Caputo said. I can't say how much BS that is. Remember, Donald Trump chose Marco Rubio to be Secretary of State. He knows who Rubio is and what Rubio believes. And the difference between these two guys on foreign policy is very, very thin. When Marco Rubio was a United States Senator and Donald Trump was president for the first time as Donald Trump 40 or Trump 45, Rubio was essentially the de facto Secretary of State for the Western Hemisphere. He was a constant Trump advisor. And then I'm going to skip down a little bit because there is a little bit more here that we don't necessarily need to read. But the point being that there's something else that Caputo said. Quote, now that said, I will acknowledge that all of the nominees, out of all the nominees, one who is encountering and could encounter the most turbulence is Intelligence Director nominee Tulsi Gabbard. She has, in some of these meetings with Republican senators, according to both Punchbowl News and Wall Street Journal, struggled at times to answer questions about her views on surveillance, end quote. And I'll be honest, that doesn't surprise me. If you have been following Tulsi Gabbard for quite some time, she is a person who believes in a strong America but doesn't believe in an overreaching America, whether that be overseas or at home. She also doesn't necessarily like the collusion, the overreach, and the justifications used to actually reach into places like Meta, Twitter, or any other social media site. Then normally these are national security justifications that the U.S. government uses to actually surveil or at least possibly change traffic on any of these sites, or at least monitor the activity on these sites. So the fact that she's having a hard time answering these surveillance questions wouldn't surprise me, mainly because I predict that she deep down is saying, no, I want all of these surveillance powers curtailed. I want them to be practically gone. So trying to find a nice way to say that, a way that won't necessarily scare all of the senators away from allowing her to take up this post, it's going to be difficult. And obviously there are some hard-neck Republicans, there are some old rhinos that want more surveillance power. They were there during the Bush era, and they have continued to be there. They have the mentality of a secure U.S. In order to have a secure U.S., it is necessary to have some sort of extra surveillance, some sort of extra tentacles is probably the best way I could put it without it sounding terrible, abroad that allow us to gather information and conglomerate all of this information into one place so that we are monitoring our threats, which is fair enough. A nation does, to some degree, need to have insight as to what is happening around the world, and normally that is gathered through intelligence. Though there are points where you can ask yourself, is it beyond the purview of what we should be doing morally, not necessarily in order to defend a nation? Because you can, honestly, you can come up with a lot of justifications that go past moral lines in order to justify defending your nation. And trust me, the United States, among every other country in the world, because every country does it, because every country wants to protect their nation and their people, and you're willing to go to extreme measures normally to do that, every single country has broke past moral bounds, but the U.S. is not an exception to that rule, no matter how much we want to lambaste other people for doing it. But there is another quote here in the article that I wanted to go through. It's the ending paragraph. Quote, "In the end, though, the Republican Senate and the Republicans who control the Senate understand that Donald Trump is a Republican, and most of them believe, if not all of them believe, that he should get his picks," Caputo added. "The one exception to that was Matt Gaetz. They bounced Matt Gaetz, and in Donald Trump's view, if you get rid of my Matt Gaetz picks, you need to pick everybody else. Though, as you said, one of the issues seems to be that there is reporting that it is Republicans who have been less than thrilled with their interactions with Tulsi Gabbard," end quote. And this is the most important thing in my mind. Donald Trump wants subservience from the Republican Party. He believes that he is the ascendant controller of the Republican Party. I mean, it's basically already true, and he is right to believe it because whether or not Republicans like it, he has brought the base that has allowed them to be empowered. And he is saying, okay, hey, I'll give you one. I will give you one. And let's be clear, Donald Trump hasn't outwardly said this, but I feel like, though, that's not an irrational position. You can have one, you can have two, maybe max, but otherwise we have one that we throw to the lions, essentially, being a very practical person, and then everybody else needs to get through. You basically get one chance to throw out these people that you don't like, who is the worst one that you don't want to see in the cabinet or anywhere near the presidency. And in this case, it was Matt Gaetz. So to pretend as though Trump is really going to give them a choice, and of course they have the power as the Senate in order to not choose anybody, but to pretend as though he's not going to attempt to primary them, he's not going to attempt to pressure them, that he's not going to throw a hissy fit, essentially, that they don't give him the rest, is very, very low. So they all need to be doing those sort of calculations when they start asking questions, is Tulsi Gabbard up to snuff? And I think, while she may not be the most qualified, I think she brings enough to the table, and she is aligned enough on the Trump agenda that she should get through on that alone, but also the fact that she used to be a Democrat. I know most people would say, well, she's not a Democrat anymore, she doesn't hold those values. She has some pretty liberal values. Like I said, if you haven't been following Tulsi Gabbard for a long time, I would say she is still a liberal who just really sticks hard to the definition of the 1980s liberal or maybe even 1970s liberal. And she has positions that are antithetical to some of the core Republican views, especially on war. And having that sort of balance there, but yet someone who agrees with you on most of the cultural issues, which is where a large divide in the spectrum, or the, how should I say, in the body populace is, which honestly, there's only a few positions that are not obscene if you want to be the most blunt about it as possible. But the point being that if they're following along with you on the cultural issues, which is honestly what most people have, I don't want to say care about, but what has been the main attention getter throughout time, and yet she's still able to counterbalance you on serious policy issues as well and provide an alternative point of view, I think that is actually a good thing. For a while there, I even said that I thought she may be Trump's VP, and I would have liked that better if that ticket was a Trump-Tulsi Gabbard ticket. Doesn't mean I still would have loved it altogether, but I would have thought it was a better one. But with that said, we've talked about a lot of serious stuff. We're going to see how her confirmation goes. Let's jump into our daily delight. Today we have a video. The headline, or the title for the video from Woo Globe, is "Adorable Monkey Learns That Ice Creams Are Taken, Not Given." And honestly, it's a video of a guy kind of taunting the monkey, and the monkey just straight up, ham fist that, give me that, and takes it and starts eating it. is absolutely adorable. And if you want to check out the article from today, you want to read the entire thing, or you want to watch today's Daily Delight, the video, both the links will be in the description below that like and subscribe button. Also down there, you can find the podcast on Spotify, Pocket Cast, Podvine, as well as the Twitter handle at your Daily Flip, where I post the links to both today's episode and the 6 and 6, which comes out on Tuesday, Thursday. It's 6 stories from around the world in 6 minutes or less. So it's international news meant to be easily consumable, nice little small bits of content. So with all that said, there's only one more thing to say. Stay safe, don't die.